everyone, welcome to another episode of the GCS Connect Leaders Series. I'm speaking to Tony Healy of Ticketer today. He's the CTO and the Chief Executive Officer of Technology and Innovation. One of the things I really enjoyed about this conversation is how we talk so well about bringing simplicity into an organization, both for the customers, both for the technology, but also for the people. And I think he makes a really, really great argument as to how to kind of be a leader and bring people along in a really, really clear way. And I think sometimes that's something that we as managers and leaders tend not to do, is to make things a bit too complicated. And Tony, I think he said at some point, he's northern, but he's not selfish, which is a good strapline, I think, for this, is really clear at explaining the best way to do that. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's been such a successful leader. So here we go. This is Tony Healy from Ticketer. Hi there, Tony. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, mate. How are you doing?
I'm very well, yes. In the office today, so it's great to speak to you and great to have you on board and great to talk to you under the Leaders Series.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We've been talking about this for some time now, haven't we? So I'm finally glad we've got it penciled in. Fantastic.
It's good stuff. So for those kind of listening in, it's a new episode of the Leaders Series. We've got Tony Healy here from Ticketer, which is based in Hungerford and develops basically transport systems for a number of organizations around the world. And I'm sure Tony will take us more through that. 25 years industry experience, so about the same amount of experience as I've had in IT. So we'll be talking about the mid-90s.
Yeah, you've got slightly more hair than me, mate, so I'm a little bit jealous.
That's right, yeah. It's not a very stressful job, is it, recruitment? But yeah, no, it's great to speak to you, Tony, and I'm really great to have you on board. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your role as CTO for Ticketer, and also the company itself and the things you're really kind of focused on, because it's quite a new role for you, so the things you're focused on as you come into this new role?
Yeah, so very new role for me, so week 6 now. So my job title within Ticketer is Chief Technology and Innovation Officer, which basically means that I'm fundamentally accountable for everything technology related other than product. So under my remit is security, group infrastructure, engineering, both UK and Nordics, Poland based. And I also have elements of software engineering and architecture, which falls under there as well. So my core focus on Ticketer now is really looking at what do we need to do from a technology perspective to help take us to that next level? What do we need to do from a governance perspective to start looking at better ways of working and more efficient and optimal ways of working, whether that's through agile, whether that's through team structure, whether that's through process, etc. And really sort of build the foundation now for Ticketer's next journey. And that consists of obviously a full internal review, then looking at the next generation projects that we're doing, looking at on-prem versus cloud, looking at data, looking at a variety of different things while securing product, internal, external, etc.
Quite a wide remit then.
Huge remit. Very challenging remit given the various different elements that I'm responsible for, but hugely enjoying it. Ticketer has got a fantastic reputation within the transportation industry. We've done an amazing job, getting such a large market share in the UK with the Ticketer business, then in the Nordics with FARA. They've got some real big customers that we need to try and leverage now and build on that customer success. So fantastic organization. The first thing that jumps out is that everybody wants this business to do well and everyone is pointing in the same direction. So Andy, who's our new CEO, has been in, I think, since December now, has got a real good vision, still working with the founder, John Clarfelt, on driving that to the next level now. Yeah,
that's right. And it's that, I think there's obviously always change within these sort of areas, isn't there? But I think, a lot of the conversation that we have is digitisation. And I think what we're just pre-talking on this is, transport has moved so far on from, the days of little yellow tickets and whatever.
Absolutely.
Where you've got it on your app, you're being tracked. And that must be, it's almost emblematic, symptomatic of the changes that we're making, isn't it? We expect things to happen now on our, you've obviously been involved in mobile apps for some time. We expect things to happen on our phone, don't we? If it doesn't happen, then what's going on?
Absolutely. And, we want simplification, and we want everything in one place, and we just want it to work. So there's a huge piece now that you're right. I remember when it was a little silver ticket machine with a lever on it that give you a little yellow ticket or a clipper card, when I was at school, etc. But now it's an entire ecosystem in its own right. It does so much, and then people want visibility and access of that, but in a very simplified way. So working with mobile apps, looking at real-time information, traffic alerts, how many people are on the bus, how many people are getting off the bus, and that's been one of the key things that we did during COVID as well, was notifying people before they got on what the capacity of that bus was, so they knew how many spare seats there were, all via the sort of the ticketing board and the messaging board. But it was very much a case of what can we do for our passengers and customers. So customers, the big transportation companies and the smaller transportation companies are vital, but it's what can we do to enhance that customer journey or that passenger journey? And again, it's simplification. It's making a bus driver focus on driving the bus, not having to manage 22 different systems.
Getting change and that sort of thing. So,
absolutely.
And from your side, you mentioned there, COVID, and obviously public transport is something that's been really affected by that in terms of footfall, I guess, as well. The trains have. I was on a train 2 weeks ago into London, and usually I'm a commuter. I was a commuter before, and I've usually pressed my face up against the window, and now there's kind of two people on the train, and I guess part of what Ticketer is trying to do, like you just said there about the safety, is to reinforce the safety of public transport. We
are
in contact with people.
And I think the face of transportation will change, with remote working now becoming more prevalent and more organisations embracing it. It's going to focus now much more on the town centre environment. So, people working in a big city can forgive, 3 buses turning up at once, your train being slightly delayed. But when you go to the more sort of rural and small towns, people aren't that forgiving. So they want that real-time information. They want to know, is masks allowed on the buses? How many people are on the buses? How long's my journey going to be delayed? If I've got a doctor's appointment or I need to get to the supermarket, etc. So it's absolutely working with the communities in order to make their lives better, drive that public transportation initiative, which is going to be so key, especially when big cities are going to be turning away cars. We've got more electrified vehicles coming on board now, so it's very much looking at what is the next generation of transportation. How do we leverage 5G? Looking at smart cities. So it's so much more than it was when I was at school sort of 20 years ago, and it's just a rate of change now we need to keep up with.
And to kind of take it all the way back, and you said 25 years industry experience, and in charge of that kind of innovation side. When we spoke before, obviously you said you kind of moved forward from the help desk side and worked in many different areas within recruitment. Your journey as a leader is moving to this CTO position. Is this something that you always had in your mind, that you felt you had the ability to do it, or is it how has your career evolved to get to this position?
So I'll give you a very potted history. So you're absolutely right. I started life working on help desks for BT, sort of 25 years ago. First line help desks, and then gradually progressed first, second, third line. Used to see all these guys walking around in jeans and shirts carrying big desktop towers, which were, I think, the Windows NT and Novella boxes back then. In sort of setting them up and installing them. So I wouldn't mind trying that. So then I got into desktops, and I got into networks, data centers, and I got more into coding because I thought I'm going to be this great engineer. Because going through school, I used to spend 5 hours on a Sunday typing away on an Atari keyboard to make a line go and bounce up and down on a screen. But that was I think the top edge of my programming skills back then. And then an opportunity arose where I basically had a decision to make around either staying as a technologist and a good technologist, or moving more into leadership and management. but starting at the ground level again. And I thought, I'm a people person. I like getting on with people. I like to go in and take charge of situations and that type of thing. So I moved into management. Again, at the starting at help desk manager, support manager, systems manager, went into head of roles, director roles, and then C-suite roles, etc. So it's always been something, and it's a key driver for me in order to not only better myself, but take my learnings, more importantly my mistakes that I've done during my career, and help educate people on how not to do things or how to do things to enhance their career. So I'm all about people and team management. So as much as technology plays a critical role in what we're doing, it's about the people. So if I've not got the right people who are motivated, driven, have got that hunger and appetite, then it doesn't matter what the strategy is, it's just not going to work. So I'm a very firm believer in people development, people management, people leadership. I do a lot of mentoring for different organizations. I do a lot of team building exercises where I have to go and build relationships, because it's a two-way trust thing. So if I can get the people and the relationships and the culture right, everything else follows. But it's critical that team ethos is there.
And what I'm really kind of interested in is obviously that career arc, bringing people along with you is obviously what's got you to this point. But another thing that's quite kind of interesting to me is that long career, and obviously then you talk about innovation, right? So, that's fresh ideas, that's new thoughts, that's new ideas being brought into a company or to technology. How do you keep fresh as a leader? How do you kind of, if it actually says in my job is technology innovation, I've got to do what it says in the tin, right? So what do you do?
Absolutely. And it means different things to different people. So, innovation can be about improving what you currently do. So how do we do it better? How do we do it smarter? How can we do it quicker? It's looking at what are the key market drivers or customer drivers out there, and how can we leverage on it? But in essence, to me, innovation is about not only improving what you're currently doing, because nobody wants to, we're not paying real top class development talent and engineering talent to sit around doing manual processes and, just day-to-day admin tasks. We want to look at automation. We want to look at, what is the next step, so they can focus on designing and coding the systems of the future. So I would say it's split really. It's about keeping your business as flexible and dynamic as possible, which is tricky in tech, because the day after you put something in, it's legacy, within the technology world. So it's maintaining the relationships with our key suppliers. So building strategic partnerships, because I don't have all the answers and my team don't have all the answers. So we need to look at the people and the organizations who have specialisms in certain areas. And then it's really around networking. So it's being a part of cultures and groups. HMG strategy is a great one. UK IT leaders is a great one. We're all there with the same vision. We all want to share ideas. Nobody wants to relive somebody else's mistake. So it's communicating and working with peers in different organizations to make sure that we're all doing the same thing, because we all want to help each other out. We're not selfish. Most of us may be northern, but we're not selfish. So what we want to do is, just use our experiences of suppliers, of projects, of where things have gone right and wrong, and just pass that information on to other people so they can take lessons learned from us, so they don't have to revisit our mistakes.
That's going to be the strap line there. Most of us may be northern, but we're not selfish.
Well, the UK IT leaders, and so you should, and it's very, very true.
That's right.
Because the UK IT leaders,
stereotypes.
Absolutely. My piece started out as it was the northern IT leaders, and then it just grew and grew, and then became the UK IT leaders. And Dave Jones and Graham Spivey have set that up, have been phenomenal in driving that. But obviously, to me, being a northern lad, there's no question about where the top talent is in the country.
Oh, for sure. Football, tech,
Well, it's gradually moving out of London now, so that's a good thing. But
that's right.
Again, it's being able to just have a bit of a laugh and a joke about these things, and you'll know, and some of the roles that you recruit for, you know, our jobs can be very, very stressful. You know, there is no 9 to 5 when you work in, you know, in tech. You know, there's weekends, there's nights, there's, you know, working for days on end during DR tests and business continuity and real life outages and stuff like that. So you have to be able to, you know, have a rapport and a team ethos when things like that happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. And that, you know, the thing for me is what I find so refreshing about IT, and it doesn't happen so much in recruitment, I can tell you, is that whole collaborative element of people talking. And it happens more in recruitment, but there's lots of businesses where it doesn't. But that is the great thing about IT, and it links into things like open source, obviously. But you know that IT people will sit down and talk through their problems and how this is working and how this isn't working. You know, and I think that's what makes it so innovative, isn't it?
It is, and you know, you look at, you know, the success stories, you know, the Ubers, the Amazons, you know, the Deliveroos, you know, that type of industry and that type of technology that's been used. That's all been through collaborative working, and it didn't happen overnight. You know, people made mistakes, but they learned from them and moved on. You know, and that's the great thing about, you know, working in technology, that when there is an issue or problem, everybody comes together to try and sort it out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I guess as well, like when you go into public transport, you know, having these ecosystems, making an advance for one, you know, bus company or something, that means you're basically making that advance to all the bus companies, aren't you? You know, this is things you can kind of roll back into.
Absolutely, you know, and working in the transportation industry is great because people, you know, have got a tendency, you know, to want to share ideas as well. You know, so where people are in competition with each other, they've all got, you know, the general message that we want to make our passengers' lives easier, and we want to give them the information we want to give them, and it's all about driving that forward.
Yeah, and you know, moving forward for yourself. Are you excited then? I guess as a leader, as an innovation leader coming out of this, because sometimes you put transportation into a box where it's not as innovative, because you know for various reasons, maybe it's an older industry or something. But COVID has done a lot of damage, but it's also broken a lot of things in a kind of positive way. So you're able to rebuild a whole sector in a completely new way because people have accepted now that things are different, haven't they?
Absolutely. You know, and if anything, COVID has taught us from a technology perspective that decisions can be made quickly. You know, things don't need to take 6 to 9 months of deliberation. You know, if you need to do something, you do it. You know, and everyone will, you know, chip in to help deliver that. I think, you know, it's probably advanced a lot of organizations' transformation strategy, you know, by multiple years, because they've been forced into doing it. I think had COVID not hit, you would still have had a portion of organizations who were 3 or 5 years behind the curve. And I think more importantly, businesses have realized what importance technology brings to them. So, you know, I would hope that when we do come out of this, a lot of the IT directors, you know, CIOs, CTOs, CISOs, who have been, you know, so forward thinking in making organizations operate and still able to drive revenue through home working, you know, through having the right security in place, etc. I hope that's still recognized and it doesn't just revert to them going back to being a pure operational function. So I think a lot of people will have built on this, will be a huge success. I think the technology execs who just want to focus on keeping the lights on probably now need to up the game a lot, because it's become so much more than just keeping the lights on. It's become about, you know, remote working. How do we make, you know, our sort of end users' life easier and better? How can we keep that security in place? And then hybrid working as well is going to be a massive piece around collaborative working. You know, how can we make people at home feel like they're in the office? You know, especially when we've got split meetings and we've got half the team, you know, in an office, half the team remote. How can we bring that whole collaborative working piece together, so people don't feel marginalized?
And I guess it even goes down to, like you just mentioned, hybrid working there, like that whole ticketing element. You know, for me, I used to commute every single day to London, right, from Reading. It costs an insane amount of money, but it brings the cost down if you do 5 days a week, right, or if you do every single day for the month. But now, obviously, they're talking about these like flexible tickets, aren't they? Because obviously, hybrid, I'm not going to do that every day, but I don't want to have to pay I hate to shudder to think the £56 it cost me for a one-day ticket from Reading to London. So those are the sort of things I guess you're looking at, the kind of the real, like, in the weeds, as it were, to say, how are we going to work this problem out?
Yeah, and there's many far more intelligent people than me, who look at the numbers, looking at the algorithms that sit behind it, looking at zones, looking at tap on, tap off, which has been a huge driver for us as well, because we all also have to think, like, not that many people are using cash these days. Everything's done via a card. So it's, how do we make better use of that? Because with COVID, people haven't wanted to be given money and getting change. So it's leveraging the tap on, tap off. It's leveraging smart card. It's leveraging mobile pay. Which we do very, very well. But then what's coming next? And then it was watches, and then it's what's coming next, that type of thing. Because I know, being a consumer of many different things, that I want simplicity. Sometimes it doesn't work so well, so Amazon's a great example where, I've had random things turn up at random days that I forgot I've ordered, because it's just so easy to do it. Open the app, press on something, next day, Prime, it's here. And that's what people want. They want that simplicity to say, actually, my bus is now 8 minutes away. It's a 5-minute walk to the bus stop. So do I have a time for another brew? Do I need to go around and do anything before I leave the house? Or I know my traffic has built up, it's delayed. So is that going to make me late to my destination? Do I need to ring anyone and let them know, etc.? So it's just always trying to think as far ahead as you can, which isn't easy in technology, because there are so many variances and variables that get thrown at you. It's an exciting time to be doing what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned simplicity there a lot. And I guess, if you think about, like, innovative technology, it sounds to me like that's where you really see that driving for the customer experience, right? So the innovative technology should drive more and more and more simplicity.
Yeah, and it's listening to what our customers want. So predictive analytics, looking at putting some artificial intelligence in place, so we can actually tell people what they need before they know they need it. Again, by looking at all the data, it's all data driven, and data is such a key part to everything that happens in the world these days. It's absolutely critical that we understand how to use that data properly. If you look at a house, in the next few years, everything's going to have an IP address. You've got wireless security systems. You can, have wireless ovens where you can, turn it on when you sat at the pub. When food's being done. You've got smart fridges. All that is technology enabled. With that comes obviously concerns around security, but the potential, to do things better and smarter is huge. Technology drives everything that we do these days. If you think that your car probably knows more about you than some of your friends, because it knows where you live, it knows where you work, it knows what your favorite playlists are, it knows what your favorite radio stations are, it can keep track of your location history, loads of different things, and the more we grow as a culture and become more and more tech, that data is going to play such a key part, because everything is going to be able to capture data at some point, but it's what do we do with it and how do we use it to make our lives better? And that's a big question that I don't think anyone's got the answer to at the moment.
I'm just quite interested, like, kind of this whole idea of simplicity is obviously for the user. Do you think that increases the complexity on the other side for the developer, or do you also try to push the simplicity down for the developer or the engineer?
I think simplicity has to cover a lot of different roads. There's the extreme of a CEO coming in who's just been out playing golf, who then wants to run his entire business off an app on an iPad, because he thinks that's what you can do, or she thinks that's what you can do. That's not always the case, and there's a hell of a lot of work that needs to happen in the background to make that happen. But if you look at simplicity from an engineering perspective, standardized on certain types of language and standardized on certain types of programs. You've got low code and no code, which are going to be coming out more and more now. There's more open source there. There's looking at how we can make our teams' lives easier. Big part of that's through automation. So if we can look at automation of tools, if we can look at different ways of doing things. It then allows the team to become very, very expert at what they do from a programming and code base. That goes across infrastructure. It's gone are the days of the massive data centers, company data centers, where we had, big AS400s, we had big Sun Solaris boxes, big IBM boxes, that type of thing. Over the years,
you're coming out with all the old school ones.
I know, but it's important because
they still sit there somewhere, don't they, in the background?
They absolutely do. And you've gone from what may have been 10 racks, to run that business down to half a rack because everything's pizza box sized and virtual and Hyper-V and all these types of things. Then you go to the cloud. It was software as a service. Now it's infrastructure and platform, etc. So the way in which the world's changing, we've just got to keep up. And I think it will change fundamentally over the next 3 to 5 years more than it's changed over the last 10 to 15 years. You think how old iPhones are. People can't really survive without an iPhone or an Android phone nowadays. You look how old Facebook is. These things have grown exponentially, but I think it's only going to get quicker as we move through time.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a few things about IoT and that sort of stuff, and you could imagine that that's like the next step, really, isn't it? I mean, I know obviously IoT is there, but for personal IoT, you walk onto a bus and somehow it knows, right, David's on the bus, it's all good.
Absolutely. Get off the bus.
Even use your phone,
Well, absolutely. Get off the bus. Realize, your phone realizes, well, you're 5 minutes away now, so put the heating on. So you got a nice warm house when you walk in, or to turn your kettle on for you. All these types of things are possible, and all these types of things are in proof of concept somewhere. It's just, we don't want to oversell things to people, because I think if people realized how far advanced we could be, it's quite a scary thing. Autonomous driving, is the key one. How many people want to get inside a car, cross your arms and not touch the steering wheel? So then that's going from one extreme to, well, I don't want to get in that type of car. Well, what are the different options between there? Is it more alerting? Is it more AI in your car so you still have control of it? But and you can take control if needed, but you get more alerts and more warnings over things. So there's a lot of different things that can happen. Autopilots in plane, walking into a cockpit and realize there's no pilots there because the entire thing is flying itself. Well, it does that anyway. The pilots play a critical role, but how comfortable would you be getting on a plane when you realize there's no pilots?
Often would you be, Tony? I don't know about that one.
To be fair, I would have to think twice about it. But that's a cultural thing, because it's what we've grown up doing. Is that going to be the same in 20 years? Got no idea.
No, lots of these things, and particularly when it comes to driverless technology and that sort of thing. These are the things when it becomes, innovation links into simplicity, links into safety, doesn't it? And then people have to believe, that's safe, that's fine.
Absolutely. And it's going to be an interesting time for kids who are growing up to see what the new technology was. You think I've got a 11-year-old and she'll never know what a fax machine is, never know what a Walkman was, or a CD player, or anything like that, because it's just alien to them. It's very much now, it's all as a service. And it'll be really interesting to see, how their lives evolve and change. Even going back to when she was little, and she had a tablet. I remember going up to the TV and trying to swipe the TV screen, thinking it was touchscreen.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's an interesting time.
Yeah, and from your side now, you're looking at talent, and obviously you've joined an organisation virtually, I guess, and now you're looking to kind of build a team around you of the right types of people. Does this change the type of talent that you're looking at, for the type of culture that you want to build? Or is it, you talked before about people management, getting the right type of people, helping them. Will it now change the type of people that you're looking for and the team you're looking to build?
I think it changes the way we look for them and how we onboard people. Because in essence, our catchment areas have now gone global. Certain roles will always need an office, or certain roles will always need, an engineering room, given, particular nuances around what they do. But we've got great catchment areas now, which to me is really exciting because we have access to so much more talent. The key is onboarding that in a way that it is seamless. The face-to-face meetings will come back. The team building and team bonding events will come back. As much as it's been great having virtual beers and beer tasting and wine tested, with people.
Yeah.
That element of actually just being all stood around having a natter in a pub, pushing someone to go and get the next round of drinks in, etc. That will come back, because I think we need it. We need that differentiation between home and work.
Particularly if we're working from home, so you need that becomes almost more important, doesn't it? It's like a requirement, not a requirement in a nasty way. It's just like you need to meet these people sometimes, don't you?
Absolutely, because that's the way you build relationships, and that's the way we're programmed to do it. And I think, seeing a little square box with somebody in it, on your first day, that comes down to how welcoming you make them feel, what their onboarding pack's like, making them feel part of the team, regular communication, but not too much communication, because then you don't want to stifle them and smother them. So that's a fine balance. I think there's a whole raft of managers and leaders out there who have never managed remote teams before. So there's an education piece on that, because a lot of people will have managed office-based staff, and then suddenly you can't see them anymore. So luckily, working in tech, I've managed teams globally for many, many different years, and you learn how to do that. But I think that's an important piece for managers. People who haven't got that experience, give them the experience and show them how to do it. I think absolutely this hybrid working is going to change some offices. So they're no more just a desk and a monitor where you go. They're going to be much more of a hub, much more of a collaborative working space, because if people are making the effort to go into an office, they don't just want a desk and a monitor anymore, because I've got that at home.
That's totally. Yeah, you've got to have a reason to go in.
Absolutely.
That could be you're sitting down to have a really good conversation with your, with your colleagues, that you're onboarding someone, training someone, the things that you can't generally do from your home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key things is Teams is great, Zoom's great, Ring Central, all those other ones are great, but it's what is the next generation of remote meeting now? Because we don't want to be sat on a Teams call for 9 hours doing a team catch up or a team strategy day. It's what are the next options that are out there.
We've got a great client that we work with that is building virtual conferences using like the Fortnite technology.
Right. Okay.
Like kind of the epic gaming technology. So it's basically you could go into your conference meeting, etc., and everyone's got their avatars that they're meeting. So we're working with them on that.
And this is brilliant,
isn't it? Right?
Absolutely. It's finding a gap in the market. Online conferences are going to boom after this. The amount of CIO, CTO conferences that I normally get invited to, which are in different parts of the country. Some are abroad. And you can't always do that. And it's 3 to 4 days out of your week if you go to some of these things. Whereas now I can book out a few hours a day or an entire day and be at the whole conference. I can get breaks and, catch up on emails and things like that. So I think those virtual conferences will probably stay. I think they will find that mix of in-person and remote just to offer that flexibility. But I absolutely think that a lot of the virtual world is here to stay, but what is that next level? Because we just, as I say, we don't want to sit in, Teams and Zooms meetings all the time. We want that level of interaction, and it helps with all hands meeting as well. Having 500 people on a Teams call, everyone's got to be muted, everyone's got to turn the cameras off, that type of thing. Then you've got the crazy person who has a weird background on and all these types of different things. If you have much more of an interactive tool, it makes it more interesting and people engage
totally.
more.
And it makes time go and spits things up. So no, I definitely think you can see that innovation in all sorts of areas, and I think it's a very exciting time for people of our age to be involved, Tony.
Absolutely, mate.
So and just to kind of bring it, wrap it up, in your kind of leadership journey, what would you say the most kind of important things you've learned in your journey as a leader that you can impart to other people?
So I would say there's a few. So first of all, learn how to tell a story. So when you're in board meetings or exec meetings, don't just stand up and talk facts and figures, because unless they're a room full of accountants, they're not going to appreciate that. So you need to tell a story about where you are, where you're going to, try and make it something they're going to remember, and try and make it sort of seem like it's something they can relate to. because then that'll stay with them more. So it's about taking them on that journey in a story form. You know, and there's many different ways you can do that. There's many examples. You know, you can relate security to the three little pigs. You can relate, you know, data lakes, data objects to a variety of different things in a kitchen. You know, it's just something they'll walk away with and remember, right, okay, that, because they're not going to remember risks. They're not going to remember, you know, numbers if that's not the way they're programmed. So learn how to tell a story. Second one would be, as a leader, you are not the most important person in that room. It is your team. So if you walk into leadership roles and exec roles with a massive chip on your shoulder, thinking you are the number one, then you are going to come a cropper, you know, because you are not going to get the engagement of those people. You know, I am where I am because of the people I've had working for me and from what they've delivered. And if you go into a mindset of I am the most important person in this room and you will do as I say, you're not going to succeed. You know, you will do to a certain degree and you may get very high, but one day that rug is going to be firmly pulled. And then the second one is treat people with the respect that you want to be treated with. You know, my leadership style is leading and developing people the way I would have wanted to sort of had that instilled in me when I was coming through my career. You know, if you can take a step back and see that you've been part of someone's development to take them from a first line role to a director role or to a C-level role, or you've mentored an entire team through a restructure or a transformation, that's something to be proud of, and keep those relationships. Yeah, exactly, and kind of keep it going, and you know, and that's because you know, to go back to the whole collaborative element, you know, you're constantly collaborating with the groups and your networks and your peers and the people you worked with in the past and sharing information, aren't you? It's absolutely, it's a community that you're building, which hopefully is the sort of thing we do with GCS Connect, and I know you do with your IT leaders grouping, which is, you know, there's information that we can share to help us collaborate, innovate, and progress. So absolutely, but it's a great time to be in technology. For me, you know, being a leader and being responsible for, you know, 150 plus people is amazing, because there's different personalities, there's different cultures, and it's a learning day every day. So every day is a learning day, and learning how to adapt to different cultures works very well because you spot nuances in individuals. You know, when someone's not quite right or they're having an off day, you get to pick up those little sort of signals. You know, and I think that's key. Industry experience is key as well. So I've been very industry agnostic. So I've worked in telecoms, I've worked in pharma, I've worked in insurance, tech, software, etc. And you bring different elements to those different roles. You know, you learn about your compliance, you learn about your security, you learn about your accreditations, you learn about private equity organizations, and, you know, small companies going into, you know, more medium and enterprise companies, all the culture differences that come with that as well. And again, it's all about the people. Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. Well, it's been great to speak to you today, Tony. I think thank you very much. I've enjoyed it. Yeah, I've really enjoyed that, and I take away the simplicity element, I think, today. Like, let's make things more simple for our customers. Absolutely. I don't think we're always very good at doing that in recruitment, but well, yeah, to be fair, sometimes we're not great in technology because we think about, you know, this amazing, real technical, you know, go-get platform or something that we've designed, and then don't realize it's like 15 clicks or 8 screens that they've got to go through to actually use it. So it's just thinking about your end user or your target audience. Brilliant. Fantastic. Thanks for your time today. No, I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. Thank you. Cheers.